Do you want to know who you are? Don't ask. Act. Action will delineate and define you. Thomas Jefferson. Presidents in the national parks go a long way back. Even before the National Park Service was founded, even before the first national park was established. Some of America's earliest presidents were laying the groundwork that would lead to the preservation and protection of some of America's finest natural areas. Perhaps there was no event more defining towards the eventual creation of the national parks, however, than a purchase in 1803 that nearly doubled the size of the fledgling United States, including lands that were to be braved by daring explorers, inhabited by exotic creatures and the resourceful Native Americans, and home to a natural landscape that would soon impress millions of settlers heading out to see this land for themselves. This was the Louisiana Purchase, and the mastermind behind it, the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson's story begins in Virginia in 1743, where he was born and grew up. With the death of his father at age 14, he came into possession of a large amount of land passed down from his father. Starting in 1768, he would begin construction on a 40-year-long project that would become his lifelong home, Monticello. Monticello is not under NPS jurisdiction, but is still well maintained by a group called Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, and you can tour the house year-round. In 1772, Jefferson married Martha Wiles Skelton, who lived with him for 10 years before passing away. It was also around this time that Jefferson started to become involved in politics. As a member of the Second Continental Congress in 1776, he was commissioned to be the main writer of the Declaration of Independence, a keystone document that would go on to establish the United States as a separate nation from Britain. The Declaration was signed at Independence Hall, now a part of Independence National Historical Park. As America went to war with Britain, Jefferson remained active in politics, becoming governor of Virginia from 1779 to 1781. Following his brief gubernatorial stint, he returned to Monticello before re-entering the fray in 1784, this time as a trade commissioner to France. Jefferson would gain key skills in leadership and collaboration while in France, and when he returned to the US in 1790, he was asked to be Secretary of State under George Washington's administration. Jefferson agreed, but most of his time as Secretary of State was spent feuding with Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of the Treasury, over how the country should be run. Both men were considering presidential bids at one point, but with Hamilton caught up in scandals by the time Washington stepped down from office, he was forced to back off, leaving Jefferson to run for the nation's highest office. Thomas Jefferson ran against John Adams in 1796 and fought fiercely but ultimately lost to Adams. However, because the rules at the time stated that the loser of the election became the winner's vice president, Jefferson took up the role of vice president. In 1800, Jefferson saw his chance to be president again and ran against John Adams again. With Adams' reputation damaged by souring relations with France, Jefferson swooped in and won the election. However, his running mate Aaron Burr was also competing to be president, and several votes had to be made in Congress as to which one would be president and which one would be vice president. After numerous rounds of voting, Hamilton, once Jefferson's bitter enemy, helped convince a few senators to vote for Jefferson over Burr, and thus Jefferson became president. Jefferson did many things while he was president, but two things stand out in relation to the national parks. In 1803, Jefferson navigated a treaty that resulted in the Louisiana Purchase, which gave the United States 530 million acres of land west of the Mississippi River, nearly doubling the size of the United States. To see what was in this newly acquired land, Jefferson sent a party of explorers called the Corps of Discovery, who were to be led by Captains Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to explore the vast wilderness of the West. Lewis and Clark set out down the Ohio River from the eastern states and officially started their journey just north of St. Louis, Missouri, at the confluence of the Mississippi and Missouri rivers, now a Missouri State Park. In downtown St. Louis is Gateway Arch National Park, previously known as Jefferson National Expansion Memorial, which details the role Jefferson played in acquiring the land in the Louisiana Purchase and Lewis and Clark's journey exploring that land. The Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail tracks the duo's journey up the Missouri River, across the Rocky Mountains, and all the way out to the Pacific Ocean, where at Lewis and Clark National Historical Park you can view Fort Clatsop, where the expedition spent a long, brutal winter on the Pacific coast. Upon returning to St. Louis in 1806, Jefferson was very pleased with their work, which would ultimately spur on a massive movement of settlers out to the western states over the next 100 years. Following his 2 terms as president, Jefferson retired at Monticello. Unfortunately, financial struggles plagued the later years of his life, somewhat ironically caused by the movement of people to the western states and territories which he had created as president, shrinking the market for people wanting to buy land in the original 13 colonies area. After a long and lustrous career, Jefferson died on Independence Day of 1826, the same day his presidential predecessor John Adams passed away as well. Thomas Jefferson is memorialized in many ways, including having counties and schools named after him, and 2 MBS units pay homage to him as well. Jefferson is located on Mount Rushmore in South Dakota alongside George Washington, see the card above to learn more about his legacy in the national parks, and Abraham Lincoln and Theodore Roosevelt, to be discussed later in this series. In Washington, D.C., situated a bit apart from the rest of the memorials, the Thomas Jefferson Memorial lies on the tidal basin of the Potomac River and was completed and put under the jurisdiction of the National Park Service in 1943. Thomas Jefferson was many things: a diplomat, an inventor, and of course America's third president. But this man also helped to lay the foundations, whether he knew it or not, for many places that would be singled out and added to a group of united parks that is often called America's best idea. In the years to come, many presidents would build on the foundations Jefferson created, but those stories are for another day. For now, we would like to thank you for watching another entry in RAC's Presidential Park series, and we'll see you next time.